The next 3 hours were some of the strangest in Taeyang's life. He sat at a conference table with Lord Vakrin, several other alien delegates, and his grandmother, who kept her knitting bag close and her slippers firmly on her feet. The Quillen Collective sent a representative who spoke in that harmonious multi-voice. We must understand this better. On our world, the eldest members of the collective guide the younger. They share memories and wisdom through our neural connection, but they do not throw objects at those who misbehave. Maybe they should, Hana said. Might make your meetings more efficient. The Quillen representative made a sound like wind chimes. The honored elder makes an interesting point. Physical correction as a teaching method. We will study this. A Nometh delegate raised one long, thin arm. For the record, we must document this incident properly. How should we classify the use of footwear as a diplomatic tool? It's not a diplomatic tool, Taeyang said quickly. My grandmother was just being a grandmother. Exactly, Vakrin said. Everyone turned to look at him. The Supreme Commander sat with surprising patience, his claws folded on the table in front of him. This is what we failed to understand. Human family structures are not merely social arrangements. They are systems of authority and guidance that operate independently of formal government. He looked at Hana with something that might have been respect. Among my people, we respect only strength. The strongest warriors lead, the weak follow or die. But we have overlooked another form of strength, the strength of age, of experience, of earned authority. I just don't like bullies, Hana said simply. Never have. Doesn't matter if they're children on a playground or giant aliens in space. Wrong is wrong. The young Vrax assistant pulled up more data on his floating screen. Commander, I have compiled additional information. In 63% of successful civilizations, elder authority figures play crucial roles in maintaining social stability. They prevent the young from making catastrophic mistakes. They preserve cultural knowledge. They provide perspective. And they keep people from threatening to blow up planets over trade negotiations, Hana added. Vakrin's scales darkened slightly, which Taeyang had learned meant embarrassment. In my defense, such threats have been effective with other species. With species that didn't have grandmothers who weren't afraid to throw a slipper, Hana said. Big difference. Taeyang decided to steer the conversation back to practical matters. So Earth will be admitted to the Galactic Council with full membership rights? Yes, Vakrin confirmed. Standard trade agreements. Access to galactic trade routes. Protection under council law. No tribute requirements beyond normal membership fees. And the condition about my grandmother attending sessions? Vakrin looked at Hana. I believe it would benefit the council greatly if Earth's elder representative attended important sessions. She brings a perspective that we lack. What perspective is that? Hana asked. The perspective of someone who is not afraid to correct bad behavior, Vakrin said. The council has grown complacent. We allow strong species to dominate weak ones. We accept behavior that is perhaps not worthy of a civilized gathering. You changed that today. I just did what any grandmother would do, Hana insisted. And that is precisely why your presence is valuable, Vakrin replied. The Quillen representative chimed in. The collective agrees. We formally propose that all member species be allowed to send an elder representative to council sessions. The wisdom of age should be honored. The Nometh delegate typed rapidly. Motion noted. We will put it to a vote at the next full council session. Though given today's events, I suspect it will pass. Taeyang felt like he was in a dream. Not only had Earth been accepted into the Galactic Council, but his grandmother had somehow sparked a reform of the entire council structure. This would be in history books. They would study this moment for generations. I have one question, Vakrin said to Hana. The weapon you used, the house slipper, is this standard human elder equipment? Hana laughed. It was a warm, genuine laugh. Every grandmother has her methods. Mine happens to be slippers. My mother used a wooden spoon. My neighbor preferred a stern look that could freeze you in place. We all have our ways. Fascinating, the young Vrax murmured, taking notes. Stop analyzing my grandmother, Taeyang said. She's a person, not a research subject. Your grandson is very protective, Vakrin observed. This is good. It shows proper respect for elders. The Vrax could learn from this. Over the next hour, they worked out the details. Earth would be granted full council membership within one standard galactic month. Trade negotiations would begin immediately. Earth could establish embassies on key council worlds. and Hana would be given the title of Grand Elder Ambassador, a position created specifically for her. "I don't need a fancy title," Hana protested. "I'm just a grandmother." "You are Earth's grandmother now," the Quillen representative said. "You represent the wisdom of your species. It is an honor." When the meeting finally concluded, Taeyang and Hana walked back through the space station corridors. Outside the windows, stars sparkled in the endless dark. Ships from a dozen worlds drifted past. "Did we really just do that?" Taeyang asked. "Did you really throw your slipper at the most dangerous alien in the galaxy?" "I did what needed to be done," Hana said. "Someone had to stand up to him. He was being a bully. Grandmother, he could have killed you." "He could have tried," Hana said. "But he wouldn't have. I saw it in his eyes. Under all that bluster and those scary teeth, he's just like any other person. He wants respect. He wants to be taken seriously. He's just been going about it the wrong way." They reached their quarters. Hana sat down in a comfortable chair and pulled out her knitting. The scarf was almost finished now. "You know what the funny thing is?" Hana said as her needles clicked. "That Lord Vakrin reminds me of your cousin Minho when he was 13. All tough and angry, pushing everyone around. But deep down he just wanted someone to notice him, to care about him, to tell him when he was wrong." "I'm not sure Lord Vakrin would appreciate being compared to a 13-year-old, Taeyang said. "Maybe not," Hana agreed. "But it's true. Everyone needs guidance sometimes. Even alien warlords, maybe especially alien warlords." Taeyang's communication device beeped. He checked it and saw messages flooding in from Earth. The news had already spread. Humanity had been accepted into the Galactic Council. Earth was celebrating. There were parades in major cities. The president wanted to speak with him immediately. "This is going to be complicated," Taeyang said. "The media will want interviews. Earth's government will need briefings. There will be so many meetings and you'll handle it," Hana said calmly. "Because that's what you do. You're good at this. I'm proud of you." "I didn't do anything," Taeyang said. "You're the one who—" "I helped," Hana interrupted. "But you stood up to Vakrin first. You refused his demands even when you were terrified. You put Earth's freedom above your own safety. That's courage. That's what a real diplomat does." She put down her knitting and looked at her grandson. "I just made sure he understood that threatening you was not acceptable. Grandmothers are allowed to do that. It's in the job description." Taeyang sat down next to her. "What happens now?" "Now you become Earth's voice in the galaxy," Hana said. "You make friends with aliens. You learn about their cultures. You help humanity find its place among the stars, and I'll be there to make sure nobody threatens you with planet-destroying weapons. And if they do," Hana smiled and patted her slippers, "then I'll handle it. I have 2 of these, you know. I only used one today. The other one is still fresh." 3 days later, Taeyang stood in the council chamber again. This time, Earth's flag was displayed among all the other member worlds. The sight of it made his throat tight with emotion. Humanity had made it. They were part of something bigger now. Lord Vakrin approached him before the session began. The Supreme Commander had requested a private word. "I wanted to thank you," Vakrin said. "Thank me?" Taeyang was confused. "For what?" "For bringing your grandmother," Vakrin said. "For showing me that strength comes in many forms. The Vraks have spent centuries believing that only military might matters. We have missed much because of this narrow view. I'm glad something good came from her throwing a slipper at you." Vakrin's scales rippled in what Taeyang was learning to recognize as amusement. "I have spoken with the Vraks High Council. We are implementing changes. Elder Vraks who have survived the longest will now serve as advisors to our military commanders. They will help us avoid unnecessary conflicts." "That's good," Taeyang said. "Really good. Your grandmother will visit my homeworld next month," Vakrin added. "She has agreed to speak with our eldest warriors, to share her wisdom. I think they will benefit from meeting her." Taeyang tried to imagine his grandmother on the Vrak's homeworld, surrounded by giant reptilian aliens. Knowing her, she would probably end up teaching them all how to knit. "Just make sure your warriors understand she doesn't like disrespect," Taeyang warned. "They have been thoroughly briefed," Vakrin assured him, "and I have ordered every Vrak's facility to stock human-style house slippers. Just in case." Taeyang sat on the floor of the Galactic Council chamber and tried to process what was happening. His grandmother had just taken control of the most important diplomatic meeting in human history by throwing a slipper at an alien warlord. And somehow it had worked. Around them, the other delegates watched in stunned silence. The security drones still hovered in place, their sensors probably overloaded trying to classify this situation. Was it an assault? Was it a diplomatic breakthrough? Was it both? Well, Hana said, looking at Taeyang. Her knitting needles clicked steadily. Go on, talk to him. Taeyang looked at Lord Vakrin. The massive Vrax commander sat awkwardly, his tail curled around his body. His scales were still that pale color. He looked like someone who had just been in a traffic accident and was still trying to figure out what had happened. What should I say? Taeyang asked. Tell him about Earth, Hana said patiently. Tell him about what makes humanity special. Not the resources or the technology. Tell him about the people. Taeyang took a breath. This wasn't how diplomatic meetings usually went. There were protocols, formal structures, careful language, but his grandmother had thrown all of that out the window, or maybe she had shown him that those protocols weren't as important as he thought. Earth is home to 8 billion people, Taeyang began. We're a young species compared to most of the galaxy. We've only been in space for about 300 years. We've made mistakes. We've had wars. We've hurt our own planet. But we've also learned from those mistakes. Vakrin said nothing. He just watched Taeyang with those glowing red eyes. We're stubborn, Taeyang continued. When something seems impossible, we try anyway. When everyone says something can't be done, we find a way to do it. We built cities in deserts. We learned to fly when gravity said we couldn't. We went to space when everyone said we should stay on the ground. And yet you are weak, Vakrin said quietly. It wasn't a threat this time. Just a statement. Your military could not stand against even a small Vrax fleet. Your technology is centuries behind ours. By every measure, you are inferior. Hana's knitting needle stopped clicking. Watch your tone, she warned. Vakrin's scales rippled slightly. I meant no offense. I speak only facts. Facts aren't everything, Hana said. My grandson is right. Humans are stubborn. We survive, we adapt. You want to know why? Because we take care of each other. Family, community. We don't leave people behind. She pointed her knitting needle at Vakrin. That's why I'm here. That's why I came all the way to space at my age. Because Taeyang is my grandson, and I'm not going to let him face danger alone. That's what family does. That's what makes us strong. The young Vrax with the data device made a clicking sound. Commander, this matches the pattern. Human social bonds are significantly stronger than our models predicted. Family units maintain cohesion across generations. Elder members retain authority and provide guidance. This creates resilient social structures. You talk about us like we're some kind of science experiment, Hana said, frowning. Apologies, honored elder, the young Vrax said quickly. He actually bowed his head slightly. I did not mean to be disrespectful. Hana nodded, apparently satisfied. She resumed her knitting. Taeyang decided to keep talking. We know we're not the strongest species. We know we have a lot to learn. That's why we wanted to join the Galactic Council. We want to trade with other worlds, learn from them, share what we have. We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to find our place in the galaxy. And if we refuse you? Vakrin asked. If we say humans are too weak, too primitive to join, then we'll keep trying, Taeyang said. We'll grow stronger. We'll develop our technology. We'll prove ourselves worthy. It might take 100 years. It might take 1,000. But we won't give up. Vakrin was quiet for a long moment. His scales slowly started to shift back toward their normal dark color. Your grandmother, he said finally. She is your clan's matriarch? My grandmother is my grandmother, Taeyang said, not sure how else to explain it. Among the Vrax, the eldest warriors command the most respect, Vakrin said. They have survived the longest, proven their strength through decades of battle. They guide the younger warriors, teach them, correct them when they stray from honor. Sounds about right, Hana said. Except I never fought in any wars, unless you count raising children. That's its own kind of battle. How many battles have you survived? Vakrin asked her directly. I told you I didn't fight in wars, Hana said. But I survived the economic collapse of 2089. I survived the pandemic of 2095. I worked 3 jobs to put my children through school. I lost my husband to cancer and had to raise the youngest 2 alone. I watched my oldest son almost die in a construction accident. I've sat by hospital beds more times than I can count. She looked up from her knitting, meeting Vakrin's eyes. I've buried friends. I've helped neighbors through hard times. I've held my grandchildren when they cried. I've taught them right from wrong. I've made sure they grew up to be good people. So maybe I didn't fight with weapons, but don't tell me I haven't survived battles. The young Vrax was typing frantically on his device. Commander, the human concept of elder is different from ours, but the underlying principle is the same. Survival. Wisdom gained through hardship. Authority earned through experience. Vakrin stood up slowly. He was still massive, still covered in scales and claws, but something about him seemed different. Less threatening. More thoughtful. I have conquered 17 star systems, Vakrin said. I have commanded fleets that number in the thousands. I have faced enemies that would destroy most species, and yet an elderly human woman made me retreat with footwear. Because you knew I was right, Hana repeated. Deep down you knew. Perhaps, Vakrin admitted. He looked at Tai Yang. Tell me, human diplomat, if we were to allow Earth into the Galactic Council, would your grandmother attend all future sessions? I don't know, Tai Yang said, looking at his grandmother. Someone has to keep you boys in line, Hana said with a small smile. Lord Vakrin made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was rough and strange, but it was definitely amusement. The Vrax Empire wishes to renegotiate. The previous terms were excessive. The chamber erupted. Delegates from every species began talking at once. The Quillen Collective made excited whistling sounds. The Nometh delegates typed so fast their devices started beeping warnings about data overflow. Even the other Vrax looked shocked. Lord Vakrin never renegotiates, one of them whispered to another. Quiet, Vakrin ordered. His subordinates immediately fell silent. He turned to address the entire chamber. The Vrax Empire acknowledges that our initial assessment of humanity was incomplete. We evaluated their military and technology. We did not properly evaluate their social structures. This was an error. He looked at Hana. Humans possess something we did not anticipate, a form of strength that does not rely on weapons or ships. The strength of their elder authority, the strength of their family bonds. These things have value, the Nometh moderator spoke up. Does the Vrax Empire wish to propose new terms for Earth's admission to the Galactic Council? We do, Vakrin said. Earth will be accepted as a full member with standard trade rights and protections. No tribute will be required. No military conscription. They will maintain their independence and sovereignty. Tai Yang felt his heart jump. You're agreeing to let us join, with no conditions? There is one condition, Vakrin said. He looked at Hana. Elder Hana must be present at all future council sessions. As Earth's representative elder, I'm not a diplomat, Hana protested. No, Vakrin agreed. You are something more important. The Galactic Council chamber remained frozen in absolute silence. Not a single being moved. The Quillen Collective had stopped their constant shifting. The Nometh delegates had stopped typing. Even the floating security drones hung motionless in the air, as if unsure what they had just witnessed. Taeyang felt like his brain had stopped working. He stared at his grandmother, then at Lord Vakrin, then back at his grandmother. This couldn't be real. His grandmother had not just thrown her house slipper at the most powerful and dangerous being in the known galaxy. That had not just happened, but the slipper on Hana's foot was proof. And the pale color of Vakrin's scales was proof, and the way the Supreme Commander stood there, completely still, was proof. Hana put her hands on her hips. It was the same stance she used when Taeyang was a child and had broken something or tracked mud through the house. He felt like he was 7 years old again, watching his grandmother prepare to deliver a lecture about responsibility and proper behavior. I raised 3 children, Hana said, her voice sharp, and 7 grandchildren. Do you know how many times I dealt with bullies? Children who thought they were tough because they were big. I sent every single one of them home crying to their mothers. She took a step closer to Vakrin. The Vrax commander actually took a small step backward. It was tiny, barely noticeable, but several delegates gasped. A Vrax Supreme Commander never retreated. Not from armies, not from weapons, not from anything. You think you scare me? Hana continued. You think your big teeth and your scales and your ships frighten me? I scraped together money to feed my family during the worst times. I worked 3 jobs when my husband died. I survived things that would make your battles look like children playing. She pointed her finger at Vakrin's chest, poking him. The Supreme Commander looked down at the finger touching his scales like it was some kind of alien weapon he had never encountered before. And now you come here, threatening my grandson. My grandson, the boy I helped raise. The boy who used to hide behind my skirts when he was scared. You think I'm going to stand by and let some overgrown reptile hurt him? Taiyang found his voice. Grandmother, maybe we should— You be quiet, Hana said without looking at him. I'm not done with this one yet. She turned back to Vakrin. Where I come from, we respect our elders. We listen when they speak. And we definitely don't threaten to kill people just because we have bigger weapons. That's not strength. That's being a bully. And I have no patience for bullies. Lord Vakrin's mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. His scales rippled through several colors. Pale blue, then gray, then a sort of purple shade. Finally, he managed to speak. His voice was much quieter than before. What? What manner of weapon was that? Hana looked confused. What weapon, this? She lifted her foot, showing the slipper. It's a house shoe. You wear it indoors to keep your feet comfortable. Though right now I'm thinking about using it again if you don't start showing some manners. A house shoe? Vakrin repeated. He said the words slowly, like they were in a foreign language. You struck me with footwear, and I'll do it again if you keep threatening people, Hana said firmly. A small sound came from the Quillen section. It started as a quiet whistle, then grew into what could only be described as laughter. The Quillen collective was laughing. Within seconds, the sound spread. Some of the Nomith delegates made clicking noises. Even a few of the smaller species began making their own versions of amused sounds. One of Vakrin's subordinates, a younger Vrax with bright green scales, rushed forward. He carried a portable data device. Commander, the subordinate said urgently. I have access to the cultural database. This is significant. Vakrin turned his head slightly, keeping his eyes on Hana. Explain. The young Vrax tapped rapidly on the device. A holographic display appeared showing data streams. The Elder Correction Principle, Commander. It appears in the dominant social structures of 63% of successful civilizations. Respected elders maintain social order through non-lethal but psychologically effective correction methods. I don't know what all those words mean, Hana said, but if you're trying to explain that grandmothers keep children in line, then yes. That's what we do. Someone has to, the young Vrax continued. Commander, our cultural assessment of Earth was incomplete. We evaluated their military capacity, resource value, and technological level, but we did not properly analyze their social structures. This human female, she has just demonstrated a form of authority that supersedes formal rank. Vakrin stared at the data, then at Hana, then at the data again. Impossible. She has no military position, no weapons, no armor. She is elderly and small. I'm standing right here, Hana said, and I can hear you. It's rude to talk about people like they're not in the room. How did you make me retreat? Vakrin asked. For the first time, he sounded genuinely confused rather than angry. I have faced armies. I have stood before weapons that could destroy ships. I have never retreated. Because you knew I was right, Hana said simply. Deep down, you knew you were behaving badly. You knew threatening an entire planet was wrong. So when someone finally called you out on it, you didn't know what to do. That's what happens when you've spent too long having everyone afraid of you. You forget how to act like a decent person? She walked over to one of the chamber chairs and sat down. Her knees made small cracking sounds. She pulled out her knitting from her bag and resumed working on the scarf. Now, she said, needles clicking. You two are going to sit down and have a proper conversation. No more threats. No more talk about burning planets. You're going to discuss this like civilized beings. And if you can't do that, I'm going to get my other slipper. Taiyang finally managed to move. He walked over to his grandmother. Grandmother, do you understand what you just did? That's Lord Vakrin. He's destroyed entire civilizations. Then it's about time someone taught him better, Hana said calmly. My mother always said that nobody is too old or too important to learn proper manners, even if he's a giant space lizard. I am not a lizard, Vakrin said. He sounded offended. The Vrax are evolved from— He stopped. Why am I explaining this? Because you're stalling, Hana said without looking up from her knitting. You don't know what to do now. You're confused. That's fine. Sit down, think. Then we can all talk like adults. The young Vrax with the data device leaned closer to his commander. Sir, I recommend we follow her instruction. The psychological profile suggests that resisting elder authority in this context would be inadvisable. She threw a shoe at me, Vakrin said quietly. Yes, sir. And it was very effective, sir. Vakrin looked around the chamber. Every delegate was watching him. The Quillen Collective had their attention completely focused on this moment. The Nometh were recording everything. His own Vrax subordinates waited for his decision. He had two choices. He could continue with his threats, possibly attack, and confirm that he was exactly what this old human woman said he was. A bully. Or he could... back down? The Supreme Commander of the Vrax Empire didn't back down, but he had already backed down, hadn't he? He had stepped away from the old woman. His scales had turned pale. He had responded to her authority without even thinking about it. "I do not understand what is happening," Vakrin said. "You're learning," Hana replied. "It's uncomfortable, but it's good for you. Now sit down. I need to talk to both of you about how we're going to solve this problem properly." Slowly, Lord Vakrin sat down on the chamber floor. His massive body folded into a sitting position. It was awkward, undignified. The Supreme Commander of the Vrax Empire sitting on the floor like a child waiting for a lesson. Taeyang sat down too. He didn't know what else to do. Hana finished a row of knitting and looked at both of them. "Good. Now let's start with introductions. Proper ones. Taeyang, tell Lord Vakrin about Earth without all the fancy political language. Just talk to him like a person." Taeyang stared at the holographic images of destruction floating in the air above him. The burning planet looked terrifyingly real. He could almost feel the heat from the images. His throat felt dry and his heart pounded so hard he thought everyone in the chamber could hear it. "Lord Vakrin," he said, keeping his voice as steady as possible, "surely we can find terms that benefit both Earth and the Vrax Empire. Perhaps a trade agreement that—" "There is no negotiation," Vakrin interrupted. His scales bristled, standing up along his spine like sharp blades. "The Vrax Empire does not negotiate with prey species. You submit or you die. These are the only choices." The other delegates remained silent. The Quillen Collective huddled together, their bodies pressing close in what Taeyang recognized as fear. The Nometh delegates typed rapidly on their floating devices, probably updating their reports. No one spoke up in Earth's defense. No one wanted to anger the Vrax. Taeyang understood why. The Vrax Empire controlled 40% of known space. They had the largest military fleet in the galaxy. Dozens of worlds paid tribute to them. The Vrax had destroyed entire civilizations that resisted. Everyone in this chamber knew that. But Taeyang also knew that if he accepted these terms, Earth would become a slave world. Humanity would lose everything that made them free. His job was to protect Earth's interests, even if that meant facing down the most powerful empire in the galaxy. "Then I must respectfully decline your terms," Taeyang said. His voice shook slightly, but he said the words. "Earth will not surrender its freedom. We will find another way." The chamber went completely silent. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, pressing down on everything. Several alien delegates turned to look at each other, their expressions unreadable. The Quillen Collective made a high-pitched sound that the translator couldn't interpret. Lord Vakrin's scales changed color. They went from dark black to a deep crimson red. Taeyang's briefing materials had mentioned this. Red scales meant anger, deep rage, battle readiness. "You dare refuse the Vrax Empire?" Vakrin's voice was low now, dangerous. He took a step forward, his clawed feet scraping against the floor. Each step made a sound like metal on stone. "You are either very brave or very stupid. I suspect the second." He descended from the Vrax delegation area, moving down the tiers toward the chamber floor. Each step brought him closer to Taeyang. The other Vrax delegates followed behind their commander, forming a wall of scales and teeth. Taeyang wanted to step back, but he forced himself to stay still. Running would accomplish nothing. Showing fear would only make things worse. He had to stand his ground, even though every instinct told him to flee. Vakrin reached the chamber floor and kept walking. He crossed the open space in just a few strides. His shadow fell over Taeyang, blocking out the light from above. Up close, the Vrax commander was even more terrifying. His scales looked like armor plating. His teeth were each as long as Taeyang's fingers. His eyes glowed brighter now, burning with red fire. "I have destroyed civilizations older than yours," Vakrin said. He leaned down, bringing his face close to Taeyang's. His breath was hot and smelled like sulfur. "I have burned worlds that had technology you cannot imagine. I have crushed species that fought with courage you will never possess. What makes you think your pathetic little planet deserves anything but destruction?" "Because," Taeyang said, forcing the words out, "every species deserves the chance to be free. That's what the Galactic Council is supposed to represent: freedom, choice, not tyranny. Vakran's scales rippled. For a moment, Taeyang thought the commander might actually laugh. Instead, Vakran raised one massive clawed hand. His fingers spread wide, each claw gleaming sharp and deadly in the chamber's light. Freedom is an illusion, Vakran said. There is only power. Those who have it, and those who kneel before it. He reached forward with that raised hand. His claws came within inches of Taeyang's throat. It was a traditional Vrax gesture, Taeyang remembered from his briefings. A dominance display. The person being threatened was supposed to bow their head and submit. If they didn't, the Vrax would follow through with violence. Taeyang didn't bow. He couldn't. If he bowed now, Earth would be finished. Everything he had worked for, everything humanity hoped for would end. He looked up at Vakran, meeting those burning red eyes, and did not move. Your world has 8 billion humans. Vakran said softly. 8 billion lives. All of them will die because of your pride. I will order my fleet to Earth. We will block out your sun with our ships. We will rain fire on your cities. We will turn your oceans to steam. And when nothing lives on your planet anymore, we will take its resources anyway. Your refusal gains you nothing. The holographic displays changed again. Now they showed Earth. Beautiful blue Earth floating in the darkness of space. Then the image changed. Vrax ships appeared around the planet, hundreds of them, thousands. Their weapons fired. The oceans began to boil. The continents burned. The image was computer-generated, but it looked real enough to make Taeyang's stomach turn. Last chance, human, Vakran said. His claws touched Taeyang's collar now, just barely. One quick movement, and they would tear through his throat. Bow, submit, or die, along with everyone you love. Taeyang opened his mouth to respond. He didn't know what he would say. Maybe something brave, maybe something that would save Earth. Maybe just a prayer. He never got the chance. Something small flew through the air from across the chamber. It moved fast, whistling as it cut through the space between the observation area and the chamber floor. The object spun as it flew, rotating end over end. The thing hit Lord Vakran directly on his snout. Thwack! The sound echoed through the entire chamber. It was a solid, meaty sound. The kind of sound that made everyone who heard it wince. Lord Vakran froze. His claws stopped moving. His scales stopped rippling. He stood completely still, like a statue. The object that had hit him bounced off his face and fell to the floor. It was a house slipper. An old, worn house slipper made of cloth and rubber. The kind that grandmothers wore around the house. It had small flowers embroidered on the side. Every eye in the chamber turned toward the observation area. Hana stood there with one foot bare. Her face was red with anger. She shook one finger in the air, pointing at Lord Vakran like a teacher scolding a student. "Yeah!" she shouted. Her voice carried across the whole chamber. "You overgrown lizard. Don't you dare threaten my grandson." The universal translator devices in everyone's ears worked quickly to convert her words. But something in Hana's tone went beyond translation. The pure fury, the absolute indignation, the grandmother-level disappointment in her voice needed no interpretation. "I don't care how big you are, or how many ships you have," Hana continued. She started walking down from the observation area, marching toward the chamber floor. Her one bare foot slapped against the ground with each step. "You do not talk to my grandson like that. What kind of manners were you raised with? Who taught you to behave this way?" She reached the floor and walked right up to where Vakran stood frozen. The top of her head barely reached his chest, but she looked up at him without any fear. "And threatening to kill people? Burning planets? You should be ashamed of yourself." Hana reached up and snatched her slipper from where it had fallen. She put it back on her foot, then looked up at Vakran again. "Well, what do you have to say for yourself?" Lord Vakran, Supreme Commander of the Vrax Empire, conqueror of 17 star systems, terror of the galaxy, said nothing. His mouth hung slightly open. His scales had turned a pale color that no one in the chamber had ever seen before. He continued to stare at the small elderly human woman who had just hit him with footwear. Taeyang Park stood in front of the massive glass windows of the space station and tried not to look nervous. Outside, stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Ships from dozens of alien worlds floated past, their designs strange and beautiful. He had seen pictures before, but nothing prepared him for the real thing. Behind him, his grandmother Hana sat in one of the waiting area chairs. She had her knitting needles out and was working on what looked like a scarf. The clicking sound of the needles was oddly comforting in this place so far from home. Stop fidgeting with your tie, Hana said without looking up from her knitting. You look fine. Taeyang dropped his hands. His grandmother always knew what he was doing, even when she wasn't looking. It was almost like she had eyes in the back of her head. She had said that exact thing many times when he was a child. Are you sure you want to come inside with me? Taeyang asked. The council chamber might be boring. These meetings can last for hours. Hana finally looked up. Her eyes were sharp despite her age. I came all the way to space. You think I'm going to sit in the waiting room? Besides, who else is going to make sure you eat properly? She reached into her large handbag and pulled out a container. Inside were rice balls wrapped in seaweed. Taeyang had no idea how she had gotten them past the security scanners. The station security was supposed to be very strict about outside food. Grandmother, I don't think— Eat, Hana said firmly. You always forget to eat when you're nervous. I didn't raise you to faint during important meetings. Taeyang took a rice ball. His grandmother was right as usual. He hadn't eaten anything since breakfast, and that had been 8 hours ago. The rice ball tasted like home, and he felt a little better. A tone sounded through the speakers. A calm voice announced that the Galactic Council would begin its session in 10 minutes. Taeyang felt his heart beat faster. This was it. Everything Earth had worked for came down to this meeting. Come on, he said to his grandmother. We need to go. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that Taeyang couldn't see the top. The room was circular, with seats arranged in rising tiers all around the center floor. Each section held delegates from different worlds. The Quillen Collective occupied one large section, their multiple bodies moving together in perfect unity. The Nometh Federation sat in another area, their tall, thin bodies perfectly still as they observed everything. And then there were the Vrax. The Vrax Empire controlled the largest section of the chamber. Their delegates were huge, easily 8 feet tall, covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Their eyes glowed with a dull red color. At the center of their delegation sat Lord Vakran, the Supreme Commander. Even sitting down, he looked dangerous. His scales were darker than the others, almost black, and decorated with marks that Taeyang guessed were military honors. Taeyang walked to the center of the chamber floor where a small platform waited for him. This was where he would stand to present Earth's case. Hana followed him but stopped at the observation area just behind the main floor. She settled into a chair and pulled out her knitting again. Several alien delegates turned to look at her. A few made sounds that the translator device in Taeyang's ear couldn't properly interpret. He thought they might be laughing. Having an old woman knitting in the Galactic Council chamber was probably unusual. The session began. A Nometh official who served as the council moderator called the meeting to order. Its voice was flat and without emotion. The Galactic Council will now hear the petition of Earth for membership in the galactic community. The representative from Earth may speak. Taeyang stepped onto the platform. The floor beneath him lit up, creating a glowing circle around him. Holographic displays appeared in the air, showing information about Earth that he had prepared. Maps of Earth's solar system, data about human population, samples of human art and music. Honored members of the council, Taeyang began. His voice was steady, which surprised him. I come before you today to request that Earth be accepted as a full member of the galactic community. Humanity has much to offer. We are explorers, scientists, artists, and builders. We seek to learn from other species and to share what we know. He continued his presentation, explaining Earth's resources, technology level, and culture. The Quillen delegates seemed interested. They whispered among themselves in their strange, harmonious way. The Nometh simply observed and took notes on devices that floated in front of them. The Vrax looked bored. Lord Vakran leaned back in his massive chair, his clawed fingers tapping against the armrest. The sound echoed through the chamber like a countdown. When Taeyang finished, there was a moment of silence. Then the Quillen delegation spoke. Their voices blended together into one sound. We find humanity's application interesting. We would welcome trade and cultural exchange. The Nometh delegate spoke next. Earth's technological development is within acceptable parameters. We see no reason to reject their application based on capability assessment. Then Lord Vakran stood up. The movement was sudden and deliberate. All other sound in the chamber stopped. The Vrax commander's scales seemed to grow darker as he looked down at Taeyang. The Vrax Empire has reviewed Earth's petition, Vakran said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. Your species is weak. Your military is primitive. Your resources are limited. We have seen dozens of species like yours. They all failed. Taeyang felt cold sweat on his back, but he kept his face calm. With respect, Lord Vakrin, humanity may not have the military strength of the Vraks, but we have survived and grown despite many challenges. We are resilient. Resilient? Vakrin's scales rippled, a sign of amusement. You have not faced true challenge. You have not faced us. Behind Taeyang in the observation area, Hana's knitting needles stopped clicking. She looked up from her work, watching the large alien carefully. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Vakrin continued. If Earth wishes to join the galactic community, you will do so under Vrak's protection. This protection requires payment. You will provide 60% of your world's resources. You will send 1 million humans to serve in our military. You will allow Vrak's bases on your moon and Mars. These terms are non-negotiable. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Even the usually quiet Nometh seemed disturbed by these demands. The Quillen delegates made concerned whistling sounds. Taeyang felt his hands shake, but he forced them to be still. Lord Vakrin, those terms are essentially surrender. Earth would lose its independence. We cannot accept. Then you will have no place in this council, Vakrin said. His voice was final. And Earth will be marked as hostile territory. The Vraks Empire deals with hostile territories in one way. The holographic display changed without Taeyang touching it. The image showed Vrak's war fleets, hundreds of ships, their weapons charged and ready. Then it showed a planet burning, its atmosphere stripped away by orbital bombardment. This is what happens to worlds that refuse Vrak's protection, Vakrin said. Choose wisely, human. In the observation area, Hana put down her knitting. She stood up slowly, her old joints creaking slightly. Her handbag sat on the chair beside her. She reached into it with one hand, her fingers finding something familiar inside.